You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
I think it's one of the best games I've seen in a long time. And it was perfect, right on the big stage. I mean, it was just incredible. And so give me your thought. I mean, there's so many things to say. I think the first thing we should give a shout out to Arrowhead. It was loud it was loud as hell, brother.
Geehaw. What is that?
Geehaw, yeah.
Geehaw Stadium.
Man, it was loud out there. And you could see the effect that had on Burrow, all the sacks, the penalties, everything that was going on. Allowed Kansas City to really start fast. So shout out Arrowhead, Chiefs Kingdom. You guys are always bringing it. I couldn't be more happy for this town, this organization, this fan base. I mean, this is truly just a fan base that deserves this, and I'm so glad we just do it year in and year out. So, Big Jeff, I'm just rambling, man. Talk to me, brother.
You're not. Hey, man, they deserve it for sure, man. Prior to that first Super Bowl appearance, it was a drought, man. 50 years, 50 years, and I think we should all take the time to appreciate the era that we're in right now, and how hard it is to do this, especially with the way that the league is set up. I mean, the league it's an 8-8 league with 17 games now, but it isn't set up for you to consistently win. The worst teams get the best draft picks, which also usually have the most cap space so they can sign great free agents.
Right.
It's to create parity, to make it even across the league. And with it being so much turnover, even in Kansas City, I mean, this roster is totally different than it was from even that first Super Bowl.
Right.
To year in and year out compete and show up, and they call it the Arrowhead Invitational now, the AFC Championship. Every single year, we're hosting the goddamn AFC Championship in Kansas City, and to be in the Super Bowl 3 years out of the last 4, it speaks volumes to not only the players but the organization from top to bottom. I don't think Brett Veach gets enough credit. I see he gets a lot of crap on Twitter, but this man is amazing, man. Obviously, he drafted Patrick Mahomes. He was a big part in that. I know it was Dorsey at the helm, but he stood on the hill for that guy, and he got us Patrick Mahomes and all the young guys. They showed up in the AFC Championship. All those rookies, 7-round picks. You got 2 rookie corners that made huge plays. You got, I call him Pistachio, running back.
Yeah, Pistachio.
He did his thing. He made some plays. The run game wasn't as effective as I would like, but he still showed up. And then you got Patrick Mahomes, man. I mean, I don't think people understand how hard it is to play on a high ankle sprain, let alone be effective and have a dominant performance. He just made play in and play out, and it gave the entire stadium, the entire town, the entire team that energy we needed to win that game.
Jeff, I didn't say it last week, but I thought there could be a chance that they're BSing and he's not going to play. Because it's a high ankle sprain. Somebody like him, how do you – that is incredibly difficult to get done. I think we got to give a shout out to Rick Buckholter, the training staff over there.
Julie, it's Julie. Patrick gave her a huge shout out, Julie.
Yeah. Okay. So
she wasn't around when you were there, but I had the opportunity to be around her. She was younger in her career then, but the entire staff, man, everybody, Glove. Everybody.
He's still there.
Glove
could have had a head job a million times over. He ain't leaving a good thing.
I mean, so it's an awesome staff from top to bottom. They do a good job, and you can't discount what they do.
Yeah. What is so? It's Julie Freimer. What is her? Is she like an ART?
Yeah. She's a man. And you got my man Kraft over there. He's awesome. They all collectively they do a great job collectively. Everyone has a specialty, and Julie is the person to go to when you're dealing with something like that.
That's incredible, man. And like we talked about this last week, but I think again that we just have to circle back and touch on again, harp on the fact that it just seems like Andy Reid has all these contingency plans. He's got all this stuff in place to make sure the team is ready to adjust or compensate or do whatever it needs to do when situations happen, right? And so you have your key starters hurt, Kelsey, Pat Mahomes. Well, we got the best training staff in the world, and we're going to make sure they're out there ready to go. You got your rookie corners go down, or your veteran corners go down. We got the rookies, and they'll be ready to go. It just seems like what normally would become a sort of a kink in the armor for most teams is, you expect that to be a problem for Kansas City, and it just never is. It's like they're so well coached, and not just well coached, but the way the entire operation is structured, it's impenetrable. It's just like it's a tank that's 100 miles an hour, and there's no stopping it. There's no way to stop it. And just when you think, oh, they have a weakness here, they have weakness, or Mahomes is hurt, or Kels is hurt, or they got rookies here, or they got this going on there. Nothing.
Yeah.
Just consistency across the board, all three phases. Again, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. It's just, and then you couple that with these all-star talents.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that it's not, as hard as it is, as you mentioned, to make it to 5 straight AFC Championship games. It's not surprising with Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. It's just not surprising.
It's the culture, man. And when you, like you talked about the all-stars, when you have the best guys on the team buying in, I mean, you land it on the line, doing everything they can do to give the team the best chance to win. It trickles down. I mean, everybody has that same mindset. Everybody wants to win as bad as the next guy, and that competitive nature permeates throughout the locker room. And you can see it in the way that they went out. And they took that shit personally this week.
Right.
I was kind of pissed off too. My barber is a Bengals fan. And he texted me, Arrowhead. He's talking all this mess. And I'm just like, God, cut it out. But they did a good job of collectively, for the most part, keeping everything in the house, not talking crap in the media, and let their play do the talking. But boy, did they let them have it after that game.
I don't know. I don't understand that. I didn't get the why Cincinnati thought that was a good idea.
Wasn't a good idea at all.
Why would you make that, like, everybody's going to be motivated for this game? Why add extra? Why try to poke the bear even more? I mean, this is one of those games that you go in humble, quiet, like, don't give them any reason to work any harder than they might naturally, or be any more focused or any more pissed off. That seemed like such a strategic mishap. That was just a poor decision.
I mean, act like you've been there before. I mean,
right.
Obviously, they got us last year in the AFC Championship and had a Super Bowl appearance. But I mean, they're just getting used to this. I think it was just, I attribute it to them being young and them not understanding that it's hard to get to where they are. I know they're a good team and they got back to the AFC Championship, but it's hard to remain consistent. And the way that you continue that consistency is focusing on yourself and remaining humble.
Right.
And I hope they hear this and take that and continue to build on it, but stay humble. Otherwise, this league will humble you.
Right. And I mean, again, going back to Andy Reid, I think Justin Reid had said some stuff way back at the beginning of the season, started talking shit a little bit. Andy Reid nipped that in the bud right away, and then you didn't hear it for the rest of the year. And it's just like that. These are the reasons why. There's no reason to add bulletin board material, especially in the AFC Championship game. So
it's too hard to win in this league, man.
Too hard.
The last 4 matchups against the Bengals has been a combined win total of 12 points. I mean, it's a 3-point swing each way. The Bengals got us 3 times in a row by 3, and we just beat them by 3. Everything matters, man, even the off the field stuff. So as long as you stay locked in and focused, you're going to be ready to make that play when it comes to you. You're going to give your team the best chance to win. If you're focusing on things that don't even matter about the game, that's a disadvantage.
No, you're 100% correct. Definitely not in their best interest, Cincinnati, to do that, and they paid for it. I also want to highlight this before we move on, because I know KCSN, we've analyzed this game through and through. But I do want to say, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I think the most difficult game to lose in the NFL is the AFC Championship game. Now, I know people will, or the NFC Championship, I know people will say the Super Bowl, but at least with the Super Bowl, you have a ring, you have a trophy from winning your respective championship. You made it to the Super Bowl. You played in a Super Bowl. So you're right there and you miss it, but you still have a lot that comes with making to the Super Bowl. I lost 2 AFC Championship games back to back. And it's just it's a terrible feeling. And so I bring that up to say, hats off to Kansas City to not only, just to continuously be productive every year to be back in this situation, because mentally we've seen teams either lose the Super Bowl, lose the AFC Championship, have a good year, and then they don't win the whole thing, and they just can't bounce back from having that difficult loss. This team, boom, right back to business, and it's like, no, that was last year, and we're moving on. And I remember that was difficult. That second year in New York, I would think one thing that really we had to deal with moving forward, and we weren't able to get back to that even to the playoffs, was because that was such a hard loss, especially the second time. That hangover, man, it was killer.
I've never lost the Super Bowl, but I did lose the AFC Championship game, and that was extremely hard. I in the fashion in which we lost it to.
Ooh,
I don't want to bring it back up, the details of it, but that was an extremely tough pill to swallow. We were right there. I think we'd have won the Super Bowl that year too, even though it was Pat's first year as a starter. I think we'd have won in there and got us a ring.
It was the Rams, right?
The Rams. We would have got one last year too. I don't want to bring that up either. But it was just extremely difficult to lose in that fashion against a really good football team, but from self-inflicted wounds the entire game. Didn't play a great half of football as an offense. The first half came out ready to go in the second half, and eventually got ourselves back in the game, but we end up losing it. But everything happens for a reason, man. That loss created a monster, especially for the team, but especially for Patrick. He took that shit personal in the offseason, got a lot better. He continues to get better year in and year out, believe it or not.
Isn't that scary?
And the very next year, the Super Bowl came. So
boom.
Lessons are learned in tough times and losses. They're wasted when you dwell on them and you miss the playoffs or you get worse. That's when you don't capitalize on it. But this entire organization has always learned from their losses. We talked about it throughout the season, even the Colts loss.
Right.
We said we're going to learn more now about this team than we would from a win. So, take that for what it's worth. When we say those things next year when we're talking during games when we lose a game, because odds are we won't go undefeated, understand that that's a part of the process.
Right. And this team has learned to handle it and like not let one bad game beat you twice. I mean, that's something we always talked about. One bad play, you have to have short-term memory in the NFL, and this team has mastered it. Not only, every Sunday with the way they bounce back. I mean, we saw this a few years ago when they were able to bounce back from, being 24 points down, 20. I mean, they have that ability, but also be able to bounce back from, a loss last year in the AFC Championship game to the same team to be able to come back, and now we're in the Super Bowl beating that team. I mean, it just the resiliency again. It just goes back to Andy Reid, his philosophy, the culture that he's built, the team that he's put together. This is just an indestructible force. So lots to talk about with Kansas City, and excited. I think we should shelf the Super Bowl talk, and we'll get into that heavy next week. But yeah, no. So any other last thoughts before we move on to some sort of?
No, man. I'm just hoping for good health heading into this matchup. We won't talk about the matchup itself, but I know we had a few receivers go down. I know Steve went down. So hoping that those guys are able to get healthy enough to play in the Super Bowl. And one, it's a really big game. I don't want those guys to miss that moment individually and as a team, but we need them to win that game. So
no doubt.
Hoping they get back and we're at full force, and it gives us the best opportunity to win another ring.